Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to Sinful Gaming. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. We are here for the Warhammer live reveals for Warhammer Day. There's a bunch of Warhammer 40k reveals happening today, so we're going to be waiting for them to get started. But before, we're going to do the traditional hobby hangout. In the meantime, leading up to them, I am sorry if my voice gives out at any point, or I sneeze or cough. I have been quite sick since I got back to Adelaide, just getting over a flu, which is quite horrible. After a good weekend away, got back and my kids gave me the flu. So, lovely stuff. But, you know what better way to feel better than to come and chat Warhammer with all of you good peeps. And, give me one sec, I forgot my paint pot. I do this a lot. Hello, we are back. I forgot my paint pot. I've been base spraying a bunch of Space Marines for my Empress Spears army, which will be my next GT army. So I've had one of 3 GTs in a month. They're not quite ready to get painting yet, so we're going to go with some. I've got the Judiciar and a Primaris Librarian here as well to get painted today. But if you're hanging out and hobbying and watching stuff, let us know what hobby you're working on. Love to hear from everyone in the chat. But yeah, so past weekends I went over to Hobart to the Hobart Hammer On GT for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Ended up getting the win at the tournament, which was really cool. My first ever GT win. And so it was a really cool time and event. And looking forward to getting another 40k GT in, my second one now, and another Age of Sigmar GT over the next month. And it looks like there might be a Middle Earth one just after that as well, a Middle Earth event. But yeah, John, hello to everyone that is in the chat. Hope you're all doing grand. Let us know what hobby you're working on. Love to hear from everyone on what you're all getting up to hobby-wise. Alrighty, so we're going to just start by just doing something nice and basic. We're applying a layer of black to the Judiciar, because when you spray black, you should always do another coat of black after it. It sounds silly, but it makes a lot of sense. The reason being, most of your black paints will be different than the primer that you use, so you should always just go over. This allows, if you make mistakes with your black, or like when you're highlighting black, which can happen because a lot of black is fine edge highlighting. This just allows when you go back over, you won't have a splotchy effect with your black, because if this colors are slightly different in like different lights, the color will show through. So we're going to get that done. And then we'll start working on the librarian from there once we got that. Revan, hello. Hope you're doing well. I would say, I think we're going to, I don't know. That is a good question. Like, do we think we'll see a dual box for the two army? I don't think we'll see a dual box. I think they're too, I don't think they're that close together that we'll see a dual box. I think we might see, launch boxes for both armies over a dual box. Because launch boxes definitely seem to be the way they're going. We're seeing less and less dual boxes for 40k and more launch boxes. So just get a little bit of black on the palette. Dry brush. Yeah, I think we'll see army sets. And so we just start applying some black back over. This just gives us a nice coat to work up from later. It's funny, we might, start to see the first lots of like 10th edition 40k, and I'm painting up my 9th edition models that I've had since, the start of COVID times. I've got Indominus in there. But we're going to get our Marines done finally. So what are people hoping to see tonight? What do you want to see from the reveal show tonight, everyone? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we would probably see Guard tonight. I don't think that's in any doubt. I think most people would probably suspect Guard and World Eaters would probably be the focus, but it'd be nice to see some other stuff. It is only going to be a 40k show, so it'd be interesting to see if there is more to show than just the Guard. And like the Guard, we haven't seen properly, and we know they're a big reveal. Be interesting to see what we sort of get from that. But so Judicial's got a cool ability where it can make people fight last. That's the big thing I like about him. That, and he is an absolute sweet model. So we all know if I like a model, I'm going to try and run it as best I can. It works really well. I'm going to be playing Emperor Spears, which are a combat-focused Ultramarine force. So having things that can definitely benefit me in combat are the way to go. I just like the Librarian model, so that's why we're using him. So we might start getting some of the electric blue down for the base coat. Hope once I'm feeling a little bit better, I can start getting people around for some games. Just obviously in the current climate, if I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to have people around for a game. And my kids are sick at the moment as well, which is not great. I think he's a very nice option for a combat marine. Like, he's definitely not something you would see in a lot of Marines armies because he's not going to like be there for shooting armies. He really doesn't serve a purpose in that sort of aspect. But if you're doing combat marines, you definitely can give something to them. Back in 1 sec, I'm just going to grab my paint scheme. So I'm following the G-Dub scheme. Alrighty. So yeah, this is what I'm using. I've got the White Dwarf rules. It's got my paint scheme and everything in here to do my Emperor Spears up. So So we're going to start our white off with using a bit of ash grey from Army Painter to start our white. Hey there, Nick, how are we? Oh, nice. You got more Blood Bowl teams than me, man. Painted. Like, straight away, the Ogre Battle Force will not be as good as the Star Collecting. That Star Collecting is hard to beat. I reckon we may see Gutbusters take a bigger focus in the Battle Force. I got 3 fully painted teams. Got Skaven, Dark Elves, and Orcs all fully painted now. Blood Bowl. Yeah, it's likely that those boxes will disappear. I'm quite excited to see where we're going to go with ogres. I think Sons of Behemoth have been really cool. I have a proper digest of Sons and Lumineth over the course of the week. As I get the content out for those armies, get the getting started videos and all that sort of stuff out for them. Oh. Yeah. Nope, these little bits of blue. Back 1 sec, need the silver that's over there. Yeah, so they're not Ultramarines, these are going to be Emperor Spears, which are much, much cooler than Ultramarines. No, all my Marines are Emperor Spears. I haven't done Ultramarines. And all my Marines are light blue. Not Ultra. This dude is in the ultramarine blue because he's a librarian, because all librarians wear ultramarine. I don't think ogres have that limited lineup, to be honest. They've got more models than most armies in Age of Sigmar do. I don't think we're going to see an awful lot. I think we have seen the model we're going to see. Maybe just based on what's not around, we might see a man-eater kit, maybe. But we have seen the itinerary for the... Yeah, we might see a few models here and there. I think at best we'll see something like Sylvaneth got, with a couple of extra kits on top of the hero, and that's it. We're not going to see like a Slaves to Darkness release, which is fine. You know, if we got like updated man-eaters, they do have models from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but you know, so do lots of armies. I don't think. I think, you know, if we saw. I'm not going to get a Grod because Sons of Behemoth are one of the few armies I don't own. So if I was to get Gargants, I would get the smaller the other Mega Gargants first, and build from there. They're definitely an army that I want on the horizon, I think. Definitely don't need that Beastclaw Raider box. Maybe for a Stonehorn, but I do have 4 Thunder Tusks. Grod does look absolutely amazing. I'm really happy to see them looking at characters that they had back in the Realm Gate Wars and bring them back to life. Like we've now had 3 major Realm Gate Wars characters come to life in Guard of Steel Soul, Lady of Vines, and now Grod, which is really cool. Oh, God. This flu or cold or whatever I've got has kicked my butt. Today's the first day I've like been able to get out of bed. I've literally been sitting in bed resting so I can get up for tonight to come hang out with all of you. You guys make give me something to look forward to during this time of being utter ill. So we're just going to move that to the side now, and then we're just going to go Bit of recess shading with Drakenhof onto the blue. So all this is pretty much, you can think of it like reverse highlighting, where I'm purposely painting the shade into the recesses. It saves time, means I don't have to relayer, and also it gives a really nice depth look to the model. Yeah, no, I've definitely been keeping myself nice and well. It's just the part of being a parent. Your kids get sick, you are inevitably going to get sick. So I did bring a handy out here. Oh, that's better. Little bit of a at that point where it's just like cloggy. I've got like a cloggy nose, bit of a cloggy like head, but other than that, like I'm able to get up now, which is good. That certainly wasn't possible a day ago. Getting out of bed was not possible a day ago, so we're certainly on the mend. Very dark. Hello. Yeah, going pretty well. I finished my Daughters of Cain army for Hobart GT. Actually took them and won a GT, which is awesome. I pretty chuffed with all in all the results of Hobart. Winning my first ever tournament, a proper big tournament. So I was pretty chuffed with that.
Nice. Skaven are heaps fun. I've got a bunch of Skaven. They were in the options for what is going to take to the Age of Sigmar GT. That is after the 40k GT I'm painting these guys up for. But Nighthaunt won that vote. So we're taking a Nighthaunt army to my next Age of Sigmar GT, as voted for by my Patreons and YouTube members. It wasn't just the powerhouse. It's the fact of what those powerhouses to things that your opponent has to deal with allow the rest of your force to do. Like, it wasn't Marathi or the Kronspine that won me games. It was their ability on the table to be giant distractions for your opponent who has to focus on them, but also can't just give them only attention. And thus, by doing so, having those pieces on the table. Yeah, but having those pieces on it allowed me to focus on, or allowed me to, yeah. While we're here, we need the same wash of Drakenhof on the silver, so. And the new Skaven Tome actually allows you to make use of those options as well. I like that about the new Skaven book. How the battle line has just gone about changing how you can build your army with Skaven's been really, really nice. Yeah, I think it starts in about 45 minutes on my one. It says it starts 12 p.m. Sydney. Give me a sec. I can double check this, but I'm pretty sure it starts in about 45 minutes. I actually probably should get that up and make sure I'm ready to go on my end. So 2 each. So, we know that it's only Warhammer 40k. Like, so they've said it is 100% Warhammer 40k. So I think two guaranteed things we're going to see are probably Imperial Guard and Warriors. I don't know what else we're going to see from that. Maybe we might get a look at 10th. My suspicion, though, would be 10th would be, it's too far out to show 10th edition. I think we would see 10th at LVO reveal, so late January, early February is probably when we'd see 10th. We might get a hint of the next couple of battle tomes. There might be maybe a jewel box with a couple of more armies thrown in there. You know, maybe a couple of cool models might be coming out to celebrate 35. Like, we've seen that really cool artwork piece, but really cool to see. Like, if you're going to upgrade a few like random Space Marine characters to Primaris, do it now. You're going to bring back a few characters or upgrade some character models that are a bit old would be the way to do it now. 35 years of Warhammer 40k. For me, this would be a way to just update random kits for random armies. Like, I'd just be going, cool. Here's a new aspect warrior. Here's an updated aspect warrior. Here's new fire dragons for Eldar. Here's a new, I don't know, for another army. Here's a new Tyrannid warrior kit. Here's a new. What else can we do? You know, like random kits. This would be the time to do just random releases. And I wish GW would do more like random models. It's really cool with something like Parabellum and Conquest, where they don't necessarily follow an army path, where each year there's a brand new army that's coming out currently for the game. But also we see like kits getting added and upgraded for the other thing. Like this year we saw the original character models that were in resin upgraded to brand new plastic models for that. And I think that's definitely something that we can do. Cool. Remove that now. There are some really great 3D printed models. There's also like alternative, cheaper options. So other cool ones. Something I've seen really cool is the Jotnar models from Parabellum from Conquest Last Argument of Kings are much cheaper than the Giants, and they make great like mega giants. They're actually like quite a bit bigger because the Conquest is set in 38 millimeter. And Mantic's Giant is a lot bigger as well. There's quite a few other giants out there that are really good for like size and work really well. So there's definitely some ways you can cheapen up that army. And like Hello World said, some 3D printed ones are really cool. But even like without having to go 3D printed, you can definitely find other companies like Magic, like Parabellum, that have alternate models. Like a giant's a giant. I don't think it really matters what sort of way you're looking at it. It's not the most iconic thing. The only thing that GW giants really have is got 4 toes. That is the only big sort of staple of a GW giant is 4 toes. If that's not a big issue to you having the 4 toes, then yeah, that's definitely. James, hello. Going pretty well. Besides being absolutely horribly sick, but what can you do with that? Any parent will know. Your kids get sick, you get sick. And so I come back from having an amazing weekend, winning my first Warhammer GT, and catch the flu from my kiddies. I only just got out of bed properly for the first time today. So yeah, there's been that. It's been a time. We'll go with that. But being able to come hobby and hang out and chat with everyone is a great time, no matter what. And then hopefully, if I'm on the mend tomorrow, I can start getting the start of the Lumina and Sons of Behemoth content up for people. Yeah, any dad will tell you. It's just impossible because it's annoying, because I don't do Adelaide at the moment. I remember for a while in Australia, they decided for some reason it can get really annoying. So there's certain states in Australia that do daylight savings and certain states that don't. I remember a bunch of my Queensland friends got really confused on one of the last ones, and they probably would this one as well, because they don't do daylight savings, but it says 12 a.m. on Sunday in Sydney, but that's actually 11:30 p.m. the day before with mine, and that's when it gets really confusing when it changed the day because of the time zones. And then, but it's actually the same time, despite Brisbane pretty much being in line with Sydney, so they're pretty much in the same time zone. There's they're in the same zone. They're on the eastern border. Brisbane, because it's in Queensland, doesn't have daylight savings as a thing. So Brisbane is actually currently the same time as, I think, so yeah, what is it? Brisbane is actually half an hour before that, because Brisbane, and then the clocks went back, but they didn't go back in Brisbane. So Brisbane is currently the same time as South Australia, despite being on the eastern seaboard. And South Australia is Adelaide's in the middle. Quite funny. It's actually really cool being one cool thing about Australia's time zones. We actually share time zones with both. So Adelaide shares a time zone with Beijing, and Sydney and all our eastern states share it with Tokyo. So for things that are either Blizzard related or Nintendo, Australia actually gets the stuff. Yeah, sorry, Brisbane is behind. Yeah, it's really weird. See, I've confused myself. It's actually really cool. So Nintendo and Blizzard things, we actually get the reveals and get releases for those things first in the world because we're on the same time zones, which is really, really cool. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's really weird. Brisbane is currently behind Adelaide, yet we're actually past it. We're over on the time zone. We're actually in a time zone after Brisbane, which is, yeah, it's just weird. And it's got to do with Brisbane being a really heavy farming and mining state, a lot of manual labor, so they don't like daylight savings. They don't have it because it's not beneficial to them. Country Brisbane is effectively, to put it in that's our Texas in Australia, to put it's weird. It's really weird because when I was over in Tasmania, actually, which is on the eastern seaboard as well, Tasmania is the same as Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Tasmania. They're all the same time zone. For a moment, I was an hour in front of Adelaide because we change over at the 3 o'clock, but we change over at 3 o'clock at Tasmania, which means Adelaide, for like that brief hour and a half period, I was an hour ahead of everything here. It's really weird how like daylight savings and that works. I don't know. Does America have daylight savings? I don't know. I know like England has daylight savings. Does daylight savings exist in America? Oh, cool. I did not know that. It's one of those interesting things because I know not every country in the world uses daylight savings. I believe it's something to do with the closer you are to the two medians, Greenwich median and the world timeline or whatever it's called. I believe it's the closer you are to them, the more likely you are to have it. But I know it's not a universal thing. Yeah, that's interesting, James. It is an old, like, it is an outdated thing. It doesn't need to exist anymore. Because the idea was to get more time in the day for farmers. Like, literally what it is. Which is actually why, like, in Australia, Queensland, the main farming state in the country, has actually abolished it because it's not beneficial to them, where the states that aren't farm states have kept it. Yeah, Greenwich median is the ziggity-zaggity line, which is odd because the Earth is not perfectly round. It's actually more pear-shaped. And the other one's a flat line. I can't remember. Can't remember the name of the other one. Look, I remember stuff from school, okay? Learning time, right? Here, discussing the real critical facts of Warhammer here on how daylight savings affects the Warhammer 40,000 universe. I swear, every stream there is always some weird tangent that we go on. There's always something. I haven't had a chance to check, but I most certainly will. What chat did you put them in, James? I mean this in the nicest way, but there are so many Jameses in Discord. I lose track. So many James. I believe I have like 4 Patreons that are called James. Prime Meridian, that's the one. I knew it. It's got another name, doesn't it? It's like Central Standard Daylight. I don't know. I'll be quiet. Rust Belt Blacksmith. You know what? I actually want to go read about that. It's be interesting. I actually want to go read about that. Because, yeah, it is it's a thing that's no longer needed in the world. It's not been needed ever since the Greenwich Meridian was made the ziggy-zaggedy line. Because there used to be 2 flat lines, which made no sense, obviously, when we learned. Okay, no worries. Yeah, man, I apologize to anyone that is called James. There are so many of you that follow the channel, a Patreon, Discord members. There's a lot of Jameses. Don't know what it is. I have a lot of people that like the channel called James. I'm just going to tidy up the blue. Well, the first blue I did. Yeah, it literally was farmers, so farmers could have extra time and the extra working hours for the people on their farm. Which is why it's really weird, because like people are always weird when they not figure out what it's from, especially in Australia, because our main farming state is the one state in Australia that doesn't have it. That's actually really cool. That's actually quite interesting. Rust Belt. That's a cool little piece on it. It makes a lot of sense. No. Yeah, it's to do with ensuring dawn happens at sunrise. Yeah. That's effectively the be-all. Oh, as I just kicked my camera. Stay. And so we've got our nice blue cloak all done. So just to time him with the rest of the army, we've gone with the cloak on him is the blue that the white regular Space Marines wear as their armor. Then because they've got white helms, I'm like, oh, what can I do the undercloak? I'll do it white as well. So it should be on the stream, should be on in about 25-ish minutes. I'll be back in a sec. Ready to put my white. All right, James. Now we'll see you in a bit. If there's one thing I can recommend to anyone, it is ditch all your GW whites. Painting wise, I freaking hate them. Started using the Army Painters white, and so much better. GW just have terrible, terrible whites. That Corax white is terrible. It's a really nice color, but man, is it awful. I got like 12 pots of that from when I bought the second. Sorry, everyone. That one came out of nowhere. As I was saying, I got about 12 pots of Corax white when I bought the second issue of the Dominion magazine. Not one of them was usable. It's just awful, that color. There is reasoning behind why they call Corax white rather than off grey, because the way GW does their paints, the idea is that you can see how to paint white in their sort of stage set by going white, white, white. Oh. So we'll call off colors a flat color, despite not being that flat color, because it goes with that sort of shading purpose. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the new GW shades. If you're looking for something similar, yeah, so all the washes have changed in their makeup. They're much more like contrast now, all the washes, despite changes. A lot of the glosses are disappearing from the range. Also, a lot of the air paints disappeared from the range, which was very disappointed with. Oh. Robin, not a lot. Just been hobbying, hanging out, and chatting. Evening. Yeah, I know the washers have changed. Rust Belt, like the washers have changed in their formula now. They're not the same as what they used to be. Vegemite is great. I love my Vegemite. Oh, Marmite. That is horrible. It's got to be Vegemite or nothing. I hate all the other alternatives. And there's nothing I hate more than that Vegemite 2.0. That cheesy mite is horrible. Looks like, though, if you're looking for cool washes, it looks like Pro Acryl are bringing out some really cool washes that look to have the same effect as the old GW style washes. So keep an eye out on them. Yeah, they definitely look really cool. Got some Outdoor Guard blue now for some edge highlighting on the blue armor now. Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't happy with the new washes from GW. It's not been a positive response, I would say. Yeah, I don't know why they needed to tinker with the washes. They were probably, I'm not even probably, the washes we've added out were the best thing GW made. They were something that they made that even painters who moved away from GW paints may still use the washes. Oh. Holy Dover. Well, they're about putting out product now. I'll be back in 2 seconds. I just need to go to the toilet. I'll be back right back. Nick, keep everyone busy. Back. My honest opinion is I think the playtesters is nothing but a cover-up. I don't think it's the playtesters that leak stuff out. I think it was just an excuse for them to stop having it be a thing. But you know what? We still play the games. Like, make no mistake, I still love Warhammer as a hobby and a game. GW is not the best company in the world, but what big company is? It's not sticking up for them, but they're a company at the end of the day. They're publicly traded. Yeah, John, getting close. You know what? And at least they're not Wizard, and they're not giving us a celebration. At least a celebration mini is not costing $1,000 for cards that can't be used in any format, even the most casual format of the game. That Wizard stuff with those with the Magic celebration is wow. It could be Wizard. Yeah. So Pleasant Kenobi, well-known Magic YouTuber and Twitch streamer. They're not even playable in Commander, which, you know, Commander is supposed to be casual Magic. Like, that is the who cares about winning? It's just people playing a game. And yeah, they're not even playable in Commander. Like, Commander should have everything playable. There should be nothing that's not playable in Commander. The idea of Commander is casual. Just put some cards on the table. If you see me jumping off camera, it's because I don't want to blow my nose on stream for all of you to see. You don't want to see what's coming out. Yeah, it's not pleasant at that sort of horrible stage of the flu. But almost reveals soon. Should be like a minute. Should be up. Give me a sec. Oh, yeah, it's already up. So we'll pull this up. Give me a sec. So let me know if the sound is good on this. Can't see what people are saying. All right. Can you let me know how the sound is on this, please, everyone? Can you hear what's coming through? Yeah, it's not particularly great, this sound, so we'll see when they go live and we'll check it again. All right, how about now? How's the sound now, everyone? Digging this music. How's that now? so many good Battletech covers here. This is cool. Some fantastic artwork being shown. This is cool. How awesome was this?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special Warhammer preview online. It is Warhammer Day, and we are bringing you a Warhammer 40,000 preview online. My name is Adam Troke, and I'm joined by Eddie Eccles.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, as always. Very excited to talk about Warhammer 40,000 for an hour or so with you, Adam.
An
hour or so. So we're definitely getting more, I think, than
Happy
just the
Warhammer
two.
Day.
Warhammer Day to all of you. And we hope over the next hour or so you will enjoy seeing some cool stuff that maybe you haven't seen before and learning a little bit about it. Whew. So, where do we begin? Well, over the next hour or so, as I said, we're going to show you lots of cool things. Before we do, let's get bedded in. There is a question I always ask. Mr. Larmatastic has his answer primed and ready to go. We are joined by thousands of you around the world. Where are you joining us on this Warhammer Day from? Let us know in the chat. And then I can see it just explodes immediately with Glasgow in Scotland.
Where is everyone watching from?
Scotland are in the lead of the early start, but here we go. It's gone mad. Taunton in the UK, Oregon in the USA, Belgium, Taiwan, Perth in Australia. It's a good time of the day for Australia, is it?
I think it's always nice.
Middle of the night, maybe? Yes. Sweden,
Good time for Australia.
thank
No,
you
it's
wherever
not,
you are
buddy.
Joining us and
Second
spend
almost
a little bit
midnight.
of time talking about our amazing hobby.
That's one of the cool things about these previews is that we get to share it with people around the world. Me and Adam are always excited about 40k.
Pretty much
always.
yes.
But it's nice to be able to talk to all of you guys at home when you're excited too, hopefully. And we've got some very exciting stuff to show you. We're also, before we kick off, going to have a little retrospective, maybe a little look back on the last 35 years at 40k while we're kind of waiting for other people to turn up in the chat. Because it's been a pretty busy 35 years for Warhammer 40,000.
It really has. So cast your mind back, Eddie, before we jump into this. What was your first Warhammer 40,000 model?
My first model ever,
First
I think,
40k
probably
model?
like a relatively by the number Space Marine.
Like
really early
It was
on.
actually a
Like,
box of the
RPG
old
one.
Dire Avengers.
No, it would have been the ones just after them.
Okay.
So it would have been
The old
tactical,
Dire Avengers with the
Space
metal
Marine,
heads.
kind of
Very good.
classic Space Marine helmet.
The metal
Child of second
arms
edition.
I
for
am a
the
child of second
Exarch
edition,
was
so
my
I
first
had my,
40k
Cardboard
models.
Dreadnought,
What's everyone's first
Gretchen
40k models?
in identical poses. The most well-behaved Gretchen Warhammer 40,000's ever seen.
I love them with the little spiky hats and the.
I had that box, and I had the big Weapons of the Dark Millennium box with the million billion various war gear cards and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a first edition. You've been with us for even longer.
Yes, yeah. So I've been with it for about 33 of the 35 years.
So close.
Yep, so close. And my first ever models were plastic squats.
Wonder if
and
that'll
a
come
couple
back.
of,
Will they ever
couple
come
of
back?
very
Who
little metal Space Marines. So and then I really got into it in a big way in second edition. That was a few years later. We didn't know what we were doing in first edition.
I had the first book I ever purchased
Oh
was the
wow!
Angels of
This
Death
old
codex,
school
which at the time
artwork
I was
is
like, this book looks
amazing.
great.
Yep.
I bought it. I didn't have the core rule book. I didn't know what any of the numbers meant.
Go, man,
Just
no, it's
liked the
entirely
artwork and,
40k
read
today.
all the lore, and then that was
35 years of
I had
Warhammer
some
40k today.
flavour of Angels of Death Army ever since.
So
I love it. So, talking about that first edition, this is the seminal piece of artwork that was the cover of Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, sometimes known now as first edition. If this was your edition that you jumped in on, let us know in the chat. I'm really curious to see if this is where you jumped on board. This was, of course, more like a role-playing game in some ways than the mass battle game that we're familiar with now, and included some properly mad rules and really set the sort of tone of that grim darkness of Warhammer 40,000 that we know and love.
Yeah. Obviously depicting a glorious victory by the forces of the Orcs over the contemptuous Crimson Fists.
I spent many hours looking at this picture when I was a little boy, so absolutely love it. Oh, everybody's chiming in.
Right in the nostalgia. Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so what else is there to say? Crimson Fists have been making flawed last stands ever since.
wow.
Second edition heralded a bit of a step change, I think it's fair to say. For
Yeah,
Warhammer
I think I had all those books. I think the
It
Eldar
was
one
still a little
particularly,
bit before my time. I'm not
was
quite that old.
incredible, I think.
Do you remember these?
I remember getting that book and absolutely absorbing all of the lore of the Avatar and the different aspects, and the art back then was so iconic that it still kind of resonates now, doesn't it?
It really does. So my codex for this era, the army I was playing with, was Orcs.
Great choice. Great choice.
I had an extremely beardy, power gamey orc army. Nothing like the way I play nowadays, I promise. But, it was awesome. And these codexes, they really sort of allowed just the writers and for the background, like people like Jervis Johnson and Andy Chambers and Rick Priestley and so on, to really dive into the background of these forces and bring it to life. As you say, Angels of Death changed my life, and I get the impression it did yours too. Of course, it didn't stop there. This was the content. The first Warhammer 40,000 boxed game, I suppose. And I remember this landing and my little sort of group of Warhammer nerds at school being over the moon with how cool this was.
I don't think there's any piece of cardboard that has had more use in my life than the
Dreadnought.
Well, not the scenery. The Dreadnought certainly has been on a few battlefields, but the scenery, I think, is looking about 20 years in my terrain collection from this. It's looking a bit ragged.
So I insisted on using my Flamer templates from this quite far into 3rd edition because I just thought they looked really cool with the fire on. If this was your edition, if you were a 2nd edition Warhammer 40,000 person, shout us out in the chat.
Pretty sure I'm
far right hand corner there.
So I'm going to 40k
and scatter dice as well. Good
after fantasy.
Sustained fire dice, watching things blow up. Of course, 2nd edition was replaced as the movement of time comes along with 3rd edition, which was incredible. Massive fan of 3rd edition. Played a gajillion games. It introduced the Dark Eldar, Drukhari as we know them now, as a faction. And the Space Marines were a real step change. Those
multi-part. That was the first really multi-part kit, wasn't it, for 40k, where you could do all sorts of cool and wonderful weird things with them. I had a huge Dark Eldar.
This isn't the one I got into 40k with. Like I said, I got into fantasy first.
I can't possibly keep pace with all your wonderful comments. There's more than 20,000 of you in there. Somebody in the chat said, "Is the cardboard dreadnoughts?"
I remember many of the. In fact, I owned every single one of these 3 books here.
Because it would be a hit in nostalgia, but I'm not sure how you'd fare a tournament because it has no side profile, does it? Of course, loads of codexes, loads of new factions, and I'm old enough that I still think of all these as slightly new.
Yeah, these are the new guys, right? These are the new guys.
I do remember all these codexes because they did exist in the edition I was from.
Yeah. So Dark Eldar, the Tau, the Necrons. The Necrons did get a little.
I had a metal model from a White Dwarf.
Yep. We played so many scenarios. We set up a big battlefield and we had an Imperial army, we'd move all the models around, and one of them was the surprise guy, and the GM would move that, and eventually we revealed it as a Necron. Anyway, if 3rd edition is your thing, I want a 3rd ed in the chat. Let us know if you are a 3rd edition sort of starter.
I loved the Tau when they came out. I was like straight in on that army.
Changed the world. Cool. Changed the world. Oh, loads and loads of 3rd ed in the chat. My goodness, this is great to see. And then this fella turned up, and it all got a bit feisty.
Yeah, there's some big fights. Some of that. This is one of the first times that the story for 40k moved a bit, because up until this point it was always it was setting really rather than a moving story. Some of this stuff has kind of rolled back a little bit and been reinterpreted, but fundamentally this was the war for Cadia, wasn't it?
It really was. Wonderful.
Hope Katie's doing all right these days. I haven't checked in a while.
I'm sure it'll be fine. We've seen, of course, some serious revisions and range refreshes along the way. A lot of people herald this as the greatest.
So I think this is the best range re-release ever, basically, because the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari, were always like, they were quite cool. They were like the kind of space pirate vibe. But when this range came out and they had the new Raiders and the new Warriors and new Witches and all the stuff, peripheral stuff that came along with it, absolutely went from kind of, quite a cool army to pretty much the best looking army in 40k overnight.
It's one of the coolest range refreshes, right up there with
the other one I'd put up there maybe would be the for me the Gene Stealer Cult reinvention of recent years. Pretty sweet update.
I was going to make a strong argument for the Sisters of Battle, which kept the original design aesthetic.
Wow, I love that piece of artwork. That's one of my favourite night.
And of course, Leagues of Votan.
Gene Stealer Cult might be the winner.
And then we had Knights. The arrival of Knights and super heavies generally was massive.
The scale of Warhammer 40,000 has increased, hasn't it, in time? And what I mean by that is, like, the number of cool big things. Back when I started, like, the little Orc Dreadnought that was maybe, I don't know, the length of my index finger, was, like, a big dominating thing on the tabletop, whereas now an Imperial sounds like a Goliath over your army. It's amazing.
Yeah, and even these days, if you've got one Imperial Knight, you're like, I only got one Imperial Knight. It's all right, I can take out one.
Incredible.
Speaking of big guys,
I think somebody said, wait, these aren't in fourth edition. I believe we have jumped through the bounds of time. So at this point, we are like firmly in
the Cicatrix Maledictum's really messed up the timeline.
7th to 8th category. Yeah. So if you want to give me a 4th, 5th, or 6th edition shout
Battle for McCrag was my in on 40k. 2 of my cousins picked it up, and then I went and picked up an Eldar. And
Black Rich set with the orcs.
So if you weren't very good at 4th edition, that's Adam's fault for not teaching you.
But if you were great at 4th edition, then you're welcome.
Okay.
There you go.
No problem.
Definitely dodged. There you go. Some people are giving 4th failed. Don't say it. Of course, we've seen some of the sort of the mega stars of Warhammer 40,000's iconic background return, and perhaps no more sort of key example of that would be the Primarchs with Reputed Gilliman, Mortarion, and obviously. The one who,
and Magnus as well,
who can never be forgiven.
Magnus, I let him off. He's, we all make mistakes. So I think when Magnus returned, the first of the Primarchs, that really was like a step change moment, wasn't it? When we went, hang on a minute, this isn't just like messing around with the peripheries of the timeline. This is really like the movers and shakers of returning sort of thing. He's on Fenris, he's ripping up the place, and then obviously Rebuted Gulliman returned, and the galaxy got ripped in half, and Mortarion came back, and it's a pretty exciting time if you've been following the main timeline of 40k.
Yeah, and speaking of that timeline, you're seeing Warhammer 40,000 move forward in a way that it really has never done in my previous, the first 27 years or so of my experience with it.
It's so nice seeing all the old artwork come back.
Movable, always placed at sort of 2 minutes to midnight, and now the clock is moving, and I'm not sure the Imperium's ever been in more danger. But also that spark of hope thanks to the return of Gilliman.
I want Sanguinius. I put a cool one. What if the Sanguinor comes back and is actually Sanguinius?
No, they're still doomed.
They're all doomed.
The only thing to decide really is exactly how doomed. There they are, Adam. The reinvention for the Sisters of Battle. This was a huge moment a few years ago when, after a fairly long hiatus, the Sisters of Battle returned with multi-part plastic kits and a full reinvention of pretty much the entire miniature range, including some brand new things you hadn't seen before, but also classics like Benedict Engines and Seraphim and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just how the main battle unit, that Sisters of Battle squad, looks essentially exactly the same as it ever did, but also has evolved through all the techniques and craft.
Yeah, Korax and Russ are both in the warp somewhere. Same as Khan.
And so they're the same but better. I love it. I really do. I think they're an absolute.
We have no idea what happened to Dawn. We know his hand was cut off.
I've got too many Dark Angels to keep.
There you go.
One day.
Here we are. So this is talking about the timeline of Warhammer 40,000. Yeah, space map. This is.
Joe bets there will be no Age of Sigmar today. It is entirely Warhammer 40k today. We are celebrating 35 years of 40k today.
The Great Rift, that is the galaxy being torn in half by various calamities that happened across it. Everything from the events of Fenris all the way through to the fall of the Cadian Gate and other various disasters that befallen it all the way along there. And at the moment in Warhammer 40,000, if you want to get from one side of the galaxy to the other, you have to go through basically demon-infested waters of that massive tear in reality, which is bleeding water. Galaxy, basically.
Yeah, and just try not to be on the nihilist side if you can.
Yeah, if you're on the top,
just try and be
if you're in the top bit, unless you happen to be in Golden Armor or have a Space Marine chapter with you, you're probably doomed.
Oh, and then I guess this brings us right up to where we currently are with Indomitus.
Yeah, so the Necrons have been waking up across the galaxy, and
a bunch of these models from the next 40k armor.
Various different pockets, but primarily where the Silent King has been returning. They've been up to all sorts of nefarious things, including trying to make the Pariah Nexus, which is a bit of the galaxy where they've turned the warp off, which is almost as awful as where they've turned the warp on extra. So you can choose your doom depending on whereabouts in the galaxy you want to go to, but pretty much it's apocalypse everywhere.
Yes, there's still nowhere. Oh, and then the most recent, I guess, big news.
Still in the middle of being released.
Are essentially the reimagining of a classic Warhammer 40,000 faction, my first ever Warhammer 40,000 models, with the Leagues of
This is so cool. I love the Leagues of Votan.
Nicknames around the galaxy, but actually a kindred of a sort of ancient Terran civilization that sort of drifted off into the galactic.
Yeah, these were legendary when I started playing. I think there's some notes in my codexes that said I could take 25% of my army as squat allies, and I was like, what are they? And then they never showed up for about 20 odd years. But here they are, returned back, and they're bigger than ever, although they are about the same size.
Yep, gotta love it. And
right.
then it's our faces.
That's us. So that's that's the history.
It
You're
was
up to
good.
date.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I get quite excited, and the chat has had all sorts of fun, as well as some speculating on what they might see today. I couldn't say which edition got the biggest shout out, but what I would like to do is just right now, whatever your first edition was, bang the number in the chat. I'm really curious to see. I think fourth had it, but I'm
fourth edition. I think was where most people started. That was really
as it flies by. There's a lot of ninth edition, which actually
welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the party. Oh, eighth just had a full screen of eights. This is exciting. I tell you what, there's 35 years of Warhammer hobbyists in our stream. So whether you are a grey-bearded old Warhammer fan like myself, or fresh-faced and new, welcome to Warhammer 40,000. Welcome to the stream. Happy Warhammer Day. I think we're about ready.
We had a shameless plug before we dive into
do we go? Plug away.
Right. Hang on. Oh. There we go. Right. So
shameless plug.
Shameless.
Actually, one of the most exciting things about Warhammer.
Before we dive into the previews, just a quick reminder that today is Warhammer Day, and every year we have a day that celebrates Warhammer. This year's theme is 35 years of Warhammer 40,000, and we have a special edition miniature to commemorate the occasion. It is a Black Templar's Bayard's Revenge, which shows a Black Templar Emperor's Champion stabbing an unfortunate orc, which I feel a bit sorry for him, but the model
I think he's got exactly what he deserves. And
I mean,
more.
he wanted to die in battle. He's all right with it. But a really, really cool kind of thematic kind of diorama piece, really, to celebrate Warhammer Day. And if you can pick up this on pre-order from gamesworkshop.com right now, and it'll also be available in stores from next weekend.
Super. So if you want to celebrate Warhammer Day by buying an awesome,
here's a real cool model. I've got to go purchase my one of them.
.com or games-workshop.com, and you can. But we are about to dive into the first.
All right, Chance. What are we going to see? Alrighty. Alright, we're seeing the guard straight up. Oh, brand new Cadians. Wow, they're nice. Oh, hot damn. Oh, it's build ordnance batteries. Wow, there is a lot of new guard coming. The faces on these are fantastic. Oh, I like that new Sentinel. Wow, there's a lot more new guard than what I thought.
Way to kick off the previews with the Cadia Army set.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a whole heap of new things on the way for the Astra Militarum, particularly for Cadia. So there is a new army box set, and there is a range of other miniatures that are coming alongside it. But let's have a look at the box set first.
So good.
So this is much as we've seen recently with things like the Leagues of Votan, the relaunch of the Astra Militarum, including pretty much fundamentally reinvention of the infantry.
I love that thud guns are back. That's awesome.
An army launch set, and this is what you get in that set. So it's the Cadia stand set. You get 2 squads of Cadian shock troops. You get a Sentinel, which you can build up as an armored or a Scout Sentinel. You get a command squad, and you get 2 new artillery pieces, which is a brand new unit for the Astra Militarum, which you can build in a variety of different ways.
Sort of a brand new unit. We've had them before for a while.
Access to the Codex, which has got all the new rules for your army, for all the new units that are joining your army, and for the various different ways you can put an Astra Militarum army together. It's probably fair to say that Imperial Guard Astra Militarum fans have been waiting for their army for quite a long time. They're like pretty much last up of the existing armies for this edition. But one of the reasons is that they it's worth the wait. Basically, there's a huge amount of stuff coming.
It's pretty hard to argue anything else.
Yeah, so there's loads and loads of really cool stuff in there. But that's your launch set. That's what you get to kick off your new.
This is cool.
So
I love those new Cadian shock troops.
Some of the details, absolutely.
Oh, so here you can see the Cadian shock troops. They are
female
the backbone of
heads.
the Cadian regiments, of course, dispossessed since their world had a little incident. But as we've learned, wherever there are Cadians standing against the enemy, Cadia remains. And so,
I love the yelling head into the Vox there. That's awesome.
Some gorgeous options. Talk us through what you can see, Eddie.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 10 model kit, but you can build them in loads of different ways. If you've had to play with things like the new Death Corps range or any of the kind of recent squads like that, you'll get an idea of like the flexibility and the range of different options. There's loads and loads of variety in the kit. You can see already if you've got any of the old Cadians who've ever painted them up that the level of detail on these new miniatures is like a real step up. This is like a much improved kit with loads of options. There's a few things that are worth calling out about the set. So one of the things that you might notice about the set is that it has multiple special weapons in, but it doesn't have a heavy weapon squads. One of the things about the new Cadian shock troop unit is that you've got a choice in how you want to use those miniatures in your games. You can either use them as an infantry squad, in which case you can add on a heavy weapon, or you can use them as a dedicated Cadian shock troop unit. The Cadians have got years of experience as shock troops fighting against chaos incursions, so they favor a more mobile style of play. So you can use the unit if you want to. Instead of having a heavy weapon, you can use them as specific shock troops, and they get multiple special weapons and some extra rules to represent their unique abilities as shock troops.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome. And as you can see, there's a host of options within the new infantry squad. You've got Flamer, Meltagoni had a plasma gun on the previous page.
All the
You've got
classics.
Vox Operator, Sergeant, loads of great poses, loads of options. It's going to be very fun for people who want to build squads.
There's kneeling legs in the because
is that because the Cadians stand?
That's because Cadians stand, absolutely.
Boom. And a lot of love for these in the chat. We are not done with the Cadians by any measure. This is the Cadian Command Squad. Everything you'd expect. Obviously, you've got the officer, the veteran sergeant, Vox caster, standard bearer,
really cool.
and a medic. The medic's my favourite. Literally just stood there, chilling out, enjoying life.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably when the battle starts, he's going to have a pretty rough afternoon of it. But right now, he's not having the worst day. But again, it adds loads more options and bits to your kits as well, so you can mix and match this to some extent with the other Cadians. So heads and things are interchangeable. The detail on them is lovely. You've got like sculpted banners on there and things like that. There's the power fist. The power fist that you can just about make out. It's got a cigar, which is like a pretty classic Cadian thing. There's lots of bits of artwork.
You know you're a battle hardened sergeant.
Absolutely, yeah. When you're allowed to have a cigar
stub.
Yeah, I really like the Vox guy at the top who's got like a mix of weird future tech and also he's like printing out.
Is it like he's sort of printing out as he goes along?
Yeah, it's like, have you got a receipt for that artillery bombardment? The commander's really cool as well. He's got a power sword there and he's got like a holding helmet pose. And he clearly has been through the wars as well because he's got a huge scar across the front of his face. But a really characterful, almost again a diorama-esque sort of unit to show off your painting skills, because you might have quite a lot of infantry in your army, but you can take your time on these guys to kind of show what you can do. But really cool, thematic, characterful little unit.
Also, the banner was amazing. Like that sculptural detail on the banner looks incredible. Cool. If you are like me and can't freehand save your life.
Oh, so blast cannon.
This is my favourite thing in the set. I suspect much of the chat will agree. The field ordnance battery. So you get 2 of these in the set. The options you can build are, he says, and then gasps in for breath as he scrolls to get the names right. Because the last thing I want to do is mislead the chat. But you have a heavy las cannon, that's front and center. Then you have, I think it's called a bombard gun.
I think it is, yeah.
And then, I'm gonna forget the name. Tactically blow the name of the other artillery piece. You're just gonna have to trust me that it's awesome. And I will scroll through my list and find it. But yeah, so you get 2 of these ordnance teams.
It's
for the people
a
who want
bombast field gun,
perfect.
A heavy las cannon, and a malus rocket launcher.
Of course.
You got.
Perfect.
They do some different things, as you'd imagine. Cool. These are like artillery pieces. You park them at the back of your army, and they blast stuff from really far away. They've all got pretty hefty range. They all shoot 48 inches. And the choices you've got basically are that rocket launcher on the top left. That is just
it's a bombard.
Amount
Bombards
of,
had third
you
guns.
point that at something you want
Bombard's
to
the name of an old tank
infantry wrecker.
from 412.
The heavy las cannon does what you'd expect. It's a las cannon plus, so it can it does more damage than a regular las
Cannon,
cannon.
but
It's a big heavy las cannon. It kind of, you could probably even guess the stats if you took a go. And then the bomb blast at the top right is basically, if you think about it as like a slightly smaller earth shaker cannon, so you can shoot stuff that you can't see. It dishes out multiple blast damage to shots, so you can park that behind a big building or something out of line of sight and pummel away at the enemy in relative safety.
Yeah. Other things to point out about this kit, which are super cool, is obviously you've got loads of different sort of heads and arm poses. As you look across the different sort of bases with the field guns on, you can see you've got one covering his ears. You've got the the option to be pointing at targets or raising your hand, calling for fire. Different head options. They're fantastic. It all comes with a 100mm base for that one person.
These are really nice. I like the different options.
So that one guy loves his bases.
And with all these sort of munition boxes and things, you basically can create yourself like a lovely little scene, as well as a devastating long-range weapon for your army. I'm going to struggle very much to resist building mine as the bombast, because I think it looks awesome.
They all look pretty cool. I like the missile launcher myself. I think they're...
I just think any field gun that's big enough you could put your head down the barrel, and that's where it is for me.
Heavy weapons.
So it's not just
more firepower, Eddie.
Absolutely, it's not just the army set. So accompanying the new army set soon after it, those kits will be available individually, and they'll be backed up by a range of other things. So one of the things that is a staple, almost essential, of Astra Militarum are the heavy weapon teams. You've got a few options in how you use these. You can either put them together as a squad and use them as a little triple squad of autocannons, heavy bolters, las cannons, whatever you need, or you can add a little bit of heavy firepower to your infantry squads, and they can have a missile launcher or a mortar or something to back them up in killing stuff that they might otherwise struggle with. Much like the artillery, each one of these effectively gives you a little diorama scene to play out. You've got like the
These are really,
guys
really
reloading
cool.
and spotting and shouting orders and directing fire and things like that. You guys know what these do. They've been in Warhammer 40,000 for about 30
Heavy
years.
bolter, auto gun,
It's nice
mortar,
to see
missile
a
launcher, las
reinvention
cannon.
of the miniatures.
And then somebody has to keep these guys in line, and there'll be a new Astra Militarum commissar who looks really quite stern and uncompromising.
Yeah, he looks like he means business, doesn't he? So most of your Astra Militarum have got las guns. I think it's a nice touch that this guy's got a bolt gun, because you could almost the sound of the discharge of that will keep the troops in line, right?
Yep.
He's also got a power sword. It looks a pretty hefty means business power sword by the look of it as well. And he's a little bit more armored maybe than some of the commissars we've previously seen.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some of the commissars we've seen over the years have very heroic leading from the front type poses, don't they? Whereas he almost seems like the sinister standing at the back, making sure you're doing your job.
Yeah, you see like an onrushing horde of orcs, and you look behind you and you see this guy looking sternly at you. You're like, maybe I will. Maybe I'll stand here and fight the orcs.
Yeah. He looks great, but also not at all friendly, which I guess is appropriate.
That's what you want. I mean, you don't become a commissar to make friends.
We can't all be Iram Gorn, can we? So if you want to stand a little higher than your friends, of course, there is the new Sentinels. As you mentioned earlier, Eddie, the Sentinel enables you to build two models. This is the Scout Sentinel variant.
Yeah, so it's obviously a little bit lighter than the armored sentinel we've seen, and we do have a shot later on that shows you what happens when you choose each option in terms of how much armor it gets. The scout sentinel's got some nice touches, so you've got Acadian in there that's driving it, which you can interchange for the heads and options and things with some of the other kits. You can see the kind of packs of equipment on the side of it as well, which is kind of hinting towards that scout nature. You can imagine that these things range ahead of the rest of the Astra Militarum army and maybe set up little camps and things to keep watch on enemy positions, that sort of thing. And you can give it a chainsword, which actually in the new rules isn't too big in combat. It's not too shabby actually.
Good to know.
It used to be almost like a token extra attack, but now it can. It's not going to win a fight against any dreadnoughts, but it can certainly see off some light infantry or something like that.
Yeah, I think
there we go. There's the
protuberance at the back, I think, is its gyro stabilizer to help it going through more difficult terrain. I saw a question about that, but and then here you can see the Scout alongside the armored Sentinel. Armored all day for me. My current.
It's got a 100 kilo missile on it as well. That's cool.
So, and it's got the heavy armor on the legs. It's got the heavy armor all around the cabin. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, and you can see there's the difference really between these two and the current Sentinel kits is the current one. The only difference really between the armored and non-armored ones is like a roof, basically. Whereas these ones do look like different miniatures. It looks much lighter on the light version. These are obviously also a nice thing for Genestealer Cults players like myself. Yes. I might be picking up a few of these and painted in purple with some graffiti sprawled across them, and they look quite similar to some of those kind of mining equipment things as well. They've got kind of industrial look to them as well. They look no nonsense, so I think they'll gene stealer up pretty well, I think.
I'm with you. Of course, there's got to be some rules for these guys in the new
2 secs, guys. I'll be back.
codex, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is worth noting about the new Astra Militarum army is that currently the way that you do an Astra Militarum force is that you need to pick a regiment, and then once you've kind of picked a regiment, you're sort of locked into that force. That's not the way that the new rules work for Astra Militarum. It's much more similar to if you remember the Imperial Guard armies of maybe 2nd edition, where you had like a few Mordians and you had a few Cadians and maybe a squad of Catachan jungle fighters, all mixed together, kind of formed into a grand crusade under the banner of a kind of high commander, and you'd have some auxiliary units like Ogrins and things like that. So what you do in the new Astra Militarum army is that you get all your models together and you can pull them from wherever you want. So you can have your shock troops fighting alongside your Death Corps, fighting alongside your jungle fighters, and then you go, the theme of the army is going to be that this army is going to specialize in parade drills or target practice or heavy weapons or artillery or something like that. And within that, you can choose what special rules you want to apply. So it basically means that you don't need to decide on your rules before you start collecting your miniatures. There are obviously themes that lend themselves really well to existing regiments. So we've got a couple of examples up there. So parade drill is a good one. If you have a Mordian army and you like lining them up in firing ranks as the enemy charge towards you, this is one of the army special rules that you can choose to have, which gives you a benefit for basically standing still with your troops and firing with your las guns. If you have a Death Corps of Krieg army and you like the idea of having, pushing waves and waves of infantry into
this is cool. I like the idea of like
this
how your army fights. You can mix up your different troops,
taking casualties, and you can hit back harder. So there are regiments that lend themselves to specific rules, but you don't have to stick within that regiment. So lots of people will have picked up maybe Kill Team last year, and they'll have a squad of Death Corps of Krieg. You can absolutely put those in with your new Cadians, and it works as an army.
I mean, when you think about all the classic stories of Imperial Guard in Black Library novels, the Astra Militarum often operating combined operations, multiple regiments all in one battle zone. The friction between the different guards.
They really do look nice.
Things like the Gaunt's Ghost books, for example. And somebody in the chat just suggested that you should always team up with a friend, take different regiments, and argue about how to fight.
That would be very appropriate.
Which seems completely right in my mind. Also, big shout out to the extremely sort of gnarly look of the Cadian shock troopers in this artwork. The grim, dark aesthetic dialed up to 11.
Yeah, I think a lot of the recent Warhammer 40,000 artists had this sort of style. I think there's an artist who's been working on some of these that has just got that grim darkness absolutely down. Obviously, these Acadians who've lost their planet and have probably been through the wars for the past few decades, and these guys, rather than just being a bit sad about it, have decided to get vengeance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming there's going to be some more benefits.
I've seen some questions flying by in the chat, but there is like 27,000 of you, so my chances, 28,000 of you now. The chances of covering them all are pretty slim. Somebody said, have we said when the miniature is going up for pre-order? If you're referring to the Bayard's Revenge Warhammer Day miniature, that should be available for pre-order on the website now. If you're talking about this particular army set, sometime in the not too distant future,
it's not far
keep your eyes peeled. And
they said an hour and a bit, so I don't think.
I'm sure we'll get you the latest. The normal Cadian shock troopers come on 25mm bases, so and I think the command squad are on 28.5. But that can all be confirmed later. I don't know, maybe somebody wants to write an article about base sizes. It's not me that wants to write that, though, I swear. Right. Whew. That was pretty wild.
It's worth saying that isn't everything that's on its way. For
Do you mean there might be more?
There is more stuff on the way for the Astra Militarum, maybe within this preview, and maybe even more after that. So we've shown you the about half, maybe, of the new Cadian stuff that's on its way.
Excellent. As for this Cadia Stands army set, we've mentioned you get the Codex. That Codex is its sort of special edition cover. We haven't shown the cover. Trust me, it's amazing. But when you see the cover, eventually you'll realize why we haven't shown it yet. And also, there's a transfer sheet for all of your unit sort of marking needs. There we go. I think we've covered that off. We are well behind schedule. This is great.
It's all right. It's fine.
And they're well behind schedule, apparently.
Throw over to the Warhammer Studios Warhammer 40,000 Lore Master, who's going to tell us all about the next big thing coming our way.
Oh, okay. So we're seeing the next Psychic Awakening thing.
Arcs of Omen is a massive narrative campaign event taking place for all the factions in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and they're named for particular space hulks that have emerged in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So these are space hulks that have been tooled up a little bit. Abaddon has some assistance, it's fair to say, from a new player who's entered the game, who's turned these space hulks into Arcs of Omen. This is part of Abaddon's ongoing plan to subjugate the galaxy. It's a pretty big ask, so he does need some assistance, and it's probably fair to say it's not going to be good news for anyone not aligned with the War Master. So the introduction of a new fleet of tooled up space hulks with accompaniment from Chaos war fleets from various lieutenants and chosen warlords in Abaddon's service means there's a whole new scope for entirely different types of warfare in the 41st millennium. So you'll find new rules for boarding actions distributed through the Arcs of Omen campaign books as we're taking the fight onto space hulks, spaceships, orbital stations, anything that you can imagine in space, and taking the fight off the battlefields of the planets of the 41st millennium into those sorts of environments. So it'll make use of some of the scenery you'll have been familiar with from Kill Team Into the Dark, but scaling it up for a Warhammer 40,000 scale boarding action. So similarly to Kill Team Into the Dark, you can imagine there are going to be a lot of close-ranged firefights taking place, and there'll be certain units and troop types that benefit from those sorts of actions, maybe more so than others. So some of the longer-ranged troops maybe not getting quite so much of an airing, but the close-quarter bruisers and breachers, Tau breaching teams, Terminators, the sort of things that you can associate with Space Hulk clearing actions, that sort of stuff will certainly get a good run out of in the boarding actions. So Abaddon's goal is to take over the galaxy, not like Horus did as a vassal or a slave to the Chaos powers, but using his own strength and his own merits. But the galaxy's a pretty big target to try to take over, so he's had to make certain alliances and deal with various power brokers that exist in the galaxy of the 41st millennium. And we're going to see the introduction of a hitherto unknown figure that's going to help him in that regard. So there's something for every Warhammer 40,000 collector. There's new rules for every faction to take part in boarding actions in the Void, and there's also some huge new pivotal background moments. And Arcs of Omen will probably go down as the biggest event in Warhammer 40,000 history since the establishment of the Great Rift.
Alrighty.
Arcs of Omen. What can you tell us?
Well, Wade's done a pretty good. Arcs of Omen basically is the next major narrative beat for Warhammer 40,000. This is Abaddon's next major play, basically. He's ripped the galaxy in half with the Cicatrix Maledictum. He's been all but victorious at Vigilus, and his next play is alongside a new demonic ally that he's got. He's created the Arcs of Omen and huge fleets of ships which have gone out to collect artifacts for some unknown nefarious purpose. It's kind of the dark mirror almost of the Indomitus Crusade, setting out to
I like that.
yeah, it's good. It's good. Setting out to find all sorts of like arcane trinkets and relics and things across the galaxy. Nobody really knows what he's up to, but everyone's pretty sure that it's going to be bad news if he succeeds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the scene is set for something sort of very epic. You can see here this like huge conglomeration, this space.
That would be amazing, Nick.
Vomited out from the warp. The warp looks pretty sick, to be honest.
Yeah, you can see like bits of teeth there coming out. So, I mean, it means
when
that
space has teeth and tongues,
yeah,
you're in trouble.
Nice. So the Arcs themselves are space hulks. They're these enormous, great conglomerations of loads of ships mashed together over the millennia inside the warp and turned into enormous, great floating fortresses. Chaos has kind of taken them and turned them into these enormous arcs. So these are the center of Chaos fleets. And basically, they've sent them out, and there's battles erupting all across the galaxy, not just against the Imperium, but against all sorts of different factions where they're trying to grab them. And obviously, some forces are trying to stop them. So the Imperium obviously isn't a fan of these, but also there's Eldar, and where they're bumping into other civilizations in the galaxy, there's battles erupting. So from a lore perspective, this is really huge, right? This is the next major thing that's happening for Warhammer 40,000. The other thing that this means, a new series, a new narrative will also herald new miniatures. So there will be lots of cool new things, right? There'll be lots of cool new things that are tied into this realm. We'll have a closer look at some of those in the future, but not today. One of the kind of so I suppose defining nature of the battles that's happening off the back of the Arcs of Omen is that these great big arcs are either attacking Imperial stations and fleets, or they're trying to be boarded basically by the Imperials and other Xenos races to stop them. So you've got these enormous, great boarding action battles that are erupting all across the
That's
place.
a really cool piece of
So
art.
there's some rules to play those inside the books. So there's an interesting thing about these books, which is kind of come directly from feedback from customers, which is that you don't have any new rules for the core Warhammer 40,000 game.
So for match play specifically, right?
Kind of for all the game really. So there's no crusade rules in these. There's no match play rules in these, and that's come from feedback from players basically that says we don't really want our rules for a single army to be spread over multiple books, which is cool. Like we hear you. So what you've got in these instead is something even better, which is a brand new way to play Warhammer 40,000. It's a self-contained expansion that basically allows you to play boarding action battles of Warhammer 40,000. So these aren't the kind of small scale skirmishes that we've seen in things like Into the Dark. This is full scale, one army versus another army.
This is cool.
Across the inside of a spaceship,
not splitting up
smashing each other
rules.
to pieces, reminiscent of some of the best bits of fiction, basically, of Warhammer 40,000. If you read any of any large amount of 40k fiction, there's probably a boarding action in there somewhere, and there are
actually loads of them in the Heresy area, don't you?
There's boarding-tastic.
Boarding everybody's ships and then getting their heads kicked in. Wonderful. So I guess it's fair to say that this heralds something new and exciting for Warhammer 40,000, but we're going to need like some new way to.
You're going to need some terrain.
Yeah, perfect. Segue. Let's go.
The galaxy is burning, so get away from it all on a beautiful Space Hulk holiday from Imperial Cruises. Thanks to our new boarding action package, you can step right off the boat and experience the trip of a short and violent lifetime. You'll never escape this labyrinth or run out of things to see and do, all a short walk away through corridors too cozy for traffic. There's never a dull moment when the locals come to put on a show. And while you're taking in the sights, don't miss the decaying remains of civilization around your feet. You'll find history in every step. So what are you waiting for? We await your visit on the Arcs of Omen.
I love these little silly ones. And cool, some new bases and stuff.
Boarding actions, an enormous set of terrain so you can fight your own battles on the inside of some derelict Hulk.
Absolutely. So we've seen already that the first place we've seen this terrain is in the Into the Dark set.
Absolutely.
This is a much bigger expansion of that, basically. So this is a Warhammer 40,000 sized battlefield for combat patrol sized games of Warhammer 40,000 using boarding actions terrain. So it's played across, and inside that box you get 2 kill team boards worth of scenery. And combat patrol battles generally are played at about 500 points. But what tends to happen is, because it doesn't include things like monsters and vehicles, you tend to have slightly different force compositions than you would for a combat patrol size game. So you tend to find things like Terminators and Orc Knobs and Tau Breacher teams and Striking Scorpions and all those kind of like close range deadly units, which are close combat or very short range firefights, do very well. And you have it's a very different play experience from Warhammer 40,000, basically, and it gives you something really interesting to bring into things like if you're doing a campaign or something at home and you want to kind of recreate a different type of battle that's underground or in a spaceship or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those sort of linked games where you can start to sort of create a narrative with your gaming group are a delight. And these really sing to that. And as you can see, the games themselves have the potential to look just incredible, don't they? Sort of fighting over every doorway, every corridor, every choke point and corner. Love it. And as you said, this boarding actions box set contains sort of 2 times the content of the Kill Team set that was released recently. So if you already have 2 of those, then you and a friend have bought one each, and you've got enough terrain to play.
If you've got the Arcs of Omen book, then you can immediately start playing, basically.
But likewise, just pick up one of these and you are good to go. Also, bases. They look really cool. I mean, lots of people like having bases themed to the you're playing in, is also be a piece of cake to paint with your spray and go and give them a dry brush.
Absolutely. So I mean, it's a small thing, isn't it? But it's nice to have some really cool base options. Lots of Warhammer 40,000 armies obviously have got grass tufts and dirt and things like that, but plenty of the battlefields of Warhammer 40,000 are inside, industrial, in spaceships, that sort of thing. And certainly
cool.
some armies lend themselves very well to this sort of aesthetic. So if you've got
It's cool, nothing too exciting though.
Iron Warriors,
I like what the campaign
Gene
is going to
Stealers
be.
or Terminator-led force, then
this is
actually
a reveal this.
having a kind of space hulky looking boarding actiony flavored scenery kit for your bases will just set the models up really nicely.
Yeah, perfect. So, Warhammer 40,000 boarding actions. So we've also just to like do a bit of sort of retreading to where we come from. We've unveiled the Cadia Stands Army box. We've talked about the Arcs of Omens. We've talked about Warhammer 40,000 boarding actions. Be nice maybe to give Kill Team a little bit of a look in and see how it connects to this theme.
We'll see.
Welcome to the Shadow Vault.
Kill Team, okay. I can't say I buy those bases, to be honest.
Set for Kill Team, featuring a very beloved unit of Astra Militarum soldiers, the Kazakin, and some treasure hunters. Is that a fair description among the Necrons?
Yeah, so this is Shadow Vaults, the first expansion for Kill Team Into the Dark, and effectively allows you to bolt this onto your Into the Dark collection, or to kind of use as a standalone Kill Team kit alongside the core rules for Kill Team. So there's loads of cool stuff in this box, but the two things that are probably going to catch people's eye are the first are the units. You've got a new Kazakin unit of Cadians, and you've got a new unit of Necrons. So, Adam, I know you're a big fan of the Kazakin. Do you want to?
I really am, and I'm going to
guys?
Start by addressing the question, which is what's the difference between Kazakin and Tempestus Scions? And the difference is that these are the elite soldiers of the Gate World Cadia, such as it was. Obviously, with Cadia destroyed, the Kazakin that escaped.
At least with the one unnamed model.
New ones. Kazakin are seriously elite soldiers amongst a regiment, the regiments of Cadia, that pride themselves on being more elite than your average Astra Militarum regiments anyway. They're clad in carapace armor, which is that heavy armor you see. They carry Hellguns or hotshot lasguns as their standard armament. They have a preponderance of specialist weapons you'll see throughout the squad. You've got things like the long-last sniper rifle, the flamer, they've got grenade launchers and plasma guns, and they are tasked for rapid deployment when Cadia existed to any places where incursions would take place. You can imagine them leaping out of Valkyries and rumbling out the back of Chimeras and just bringing death with fusillades of incredibly accurate firepower. These are the elite of the elite if you are just an ordinary human.
Yeah, this is about as elite as a human gets, aren't they? And these guys would have been tasked where Cadia existed with taking down enemy traitor Astartes, to give you an idea of how tough these guys are. So their weapons, a lot of them are designed to be kind of armor-piercing, space marine killing weapons, basically. This kit is incredibly flexible.
It's super versatile.
If you've had a play with any of the recent Kill Team,
I wasn't expecting to see Kill Team today, but this is cool.
Or the Death Corps or the Commandos, you'll get a sense of like what I mean by that. You can build these as, you know, mostly with their hotshot lasguns, or you can go for loads of different special weapon choices. You've got every special weapon flavor you could want. There's also some kind of unique Kill Teamy specialists in there. So you've got a demolition guy that you can see on the extreme left there. You've got comms troopers. You've got sergeants. You've got snipers. You've got all sorts of different things. So it really is a super, super flexible kit. It's a really nice reinvention as well of a metal unit from about 20 years ago.
40 of these in metal. Yeah. And they were some of my favourites. And I think this is a tremendous reimagining. For context, you were referring to how versatile it was. We're talking you can have all 10 with hot shot las guns. You can have 2 with melter guns, 2 with plasma guns, 2 with grenade launchers, 2 with flamers, 2 with hot shot volley guns, and then you've got an option of 5 specialists: the combat medic, demo trooper, recon trooper, sharpshooter, and box trooper, and a squad sergeant.
Yeah. So for me, I think one of the things that the kill team boxes have done is quite a lot of the time, I want to get 2 boxes just because there's so many options. Certainly, if you've been using something like the Astra Militarum or the Blooded, you've got more options that are really good that you want to use, right? So you can get a few of these sets and intermingle them depending on your opponent. Obviously, that's for kill team. If you're playing Warhammer 40,000, you can use these guys as well.
Yeah.
They're going to have rules in the new.
That was one of the questions: is will these work well in Warhammer 40,000? The answer is hell yes.
Yeah, so
they're going to be awesome.
They've got a really fun thing that they do in Warhammer 40,000, where earlier on we were talking about the different regiment rules that you can give to your force.
Mhm.
What Kazakh can do is everybody in your army gets a regiment rule, but because these guys are elite, they get another one.
Mhm.
So they can pick from any of the other regiment rules. So you can say these guys used to be siege veterans, or they've had extra parade drills, or they've had extra they're extra tough or resilient or something
And
like
they
that.
specialise in something else on top.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like if you used to do a similar thing with veteran squads for Imperial Guards, where they used to have a few extra rules. That's basically this.
Cool.
So they're more elite than the rest of your army, which is represented by having another bonus army rule on top of everything else. It's a really nice little
The
rule to play
40k
with.
rules for these guys will be in the Guard Codex in the KD Stance box, and then released separately shortly afterwards. So you'll be able to get your hands on it nice and promptly. Don't panic. But they're not alone. They're not just sort of having parade. They are fighting against the Hierotek Circle, which are a group of Necrons with some new things added in and some awesome upgrades, right?
Yeah. So the idea for this faction is that it's a Cryptek and his retinue, basically. So he is exploring the Space Hulks, looking for artifacts, looking for kind of arcane treasures, and he's brought his warriors with him in case he bumps into any enemies, which is what you want to do inside a Space Hulk. So some of these miniatures are miniatures we've seen before. So the Cryptek in the center is an existing miniature, and then some of them are brand new, and some of them are upgrade kits.
That dude there,
existing
he
Necrons. So it's a
is
bit of
like the
a mix
limited
of
edition
different
model they had from a couple of years ago.
One of my favorite touches is the
He's almost
small
identical
Necron.
to
You
it.
can see the guy just to the left of the Cryptek. He is an Apprentech, so he's basically a Cryptek in training. He's like an apprentice to the Cryptek, and he's not quite got the kind of arcane skill, but he kind of knows his way around some kind of dark physics, and he's got a kind of cool staff as well.
Is it wrong that I find the Necron subordinates quite adorable?
I think there is a sort of like humorous tragedy to the Necrons in terms of like how they've hierarchied themselves. But what's quite sad, obviously, is that the Cryptek will probably never die, right? Because he's a Necron. So
Technomancers are a type of Cryptek. Cryptek is the overall
secondary support guy for Return to
Plasmans.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said Necrons looking for artifacts. They are the artifacts, yes, but if you imagine their tomb worlds have been plundered for, I don't know, like 1 billion years since they went to sleep, and there's a lot of stuff missing.
Yes.
So I don't blame them, sending out expeditions.
Anyone seen my ancient vase?
Exactly, right. And these are some serious foes to fight against. The Immortal Despotek, which is the fellow in the center right now, just looks like final boss level when you compare these two kill teams directly against.
He's a literal death machine.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So this kit is based on the existing Immortals and Deathmark kit, but you can obviously make that kind of more interesting character in the middle, and you get some other multi-part options for your Necrons as well, which is something nice because a lot of your Necrons are quite kind of they are serried ranks of identical warriors, right? That's kind of their thing. But the warriors inside a Cryptek circle have things like different optics. So if you look at the death marks there, they've got different choices for heads, and you can imagine specialist tracking equipment and seeing through walls and backwards in time and all sorts of weird and wonderful extra death dealing tech that they've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody asked what was the base size on the the Kazakh.
Who is this guy?
28.5 millimeters. Some people just like to know the base size.
Okay,
Who am I to judge?
Sure.
There are also some awesome little extras in this set, as well as the models and the terrain and so on. These are very handy little robot units. They're actually described as robots. I'm not just making that up. You have a heavy bolter turret sentry and a robot crawler machine with or without breacher arm. And it does look like it's going to become the new champion of Robot Wars. I, for one, just want to stick the heavy bolter turret down at the end of a long corridor and watch chaos happen.
Yeah. So these are some of the extra bits that you get in with the scenery basically that comes with this new set. A lot of the scenery is kind of expansions and stuff that you got in Into the Dark, but there's a few extra frames that kind of give you a little bit more variety. And these things do stuff in your games and allow you to play slightly different scenarios and missions and that sort of stuff. So they give you a very space hulky flavor to your Kill Team games, even more so than passing down the corridors that you've got.
True story. There we go. So coming soon, Shadow Vaults, the new Kill Team.
Coming very soon.
And here's a juicy piece of information, which is around the same time that this comes out. I think it's the same week. There is a Black Library novel all about Kazakin, written by a fella, and I had a dip into that just recently, and it's excellent. So there you go, a little tidbit from behind the scenes. Very excited. Right. We're not done yet, but we're running gloriously behind schedule. Some people have been asking in the chat, can you please show us something for the World Eaters? All right, then.
Alrighty, here we go, World Eaters. Oh.
A new hero. Is Hero the right model for the World Eaters? The Lord Invocatus, a incredible Khorne Berserker champion riding a demonically possessed lump of angry metal.
Yeah, this guy's pretty much just a wrecking ball of pain. So he is Lord Invocatus is a name we might have heard before. If you read every inch of your current Warhammer 40,000 lore, you've heard the name pop up a couple of times in references to planets that have been destroyed, maybe in previous Chaos Space Marine codexes, that sort of thing. But we haven't seen a model like this for a long time. This is a Khorne champion who's been blessed by Khorne with a Juggernaut, and just because his Juggernaut wasn't quite violent enough, he's put a chainsaw on the front of the Juggernaut just to make absolutely sure that if he hits something, it's definitely getting carved in half. The Juggernaut itself is like full of momentum and power. It looks very cool. We've seen similar miniatures recently for Age of Sigmar and for Demons, but that Juggernaut arguably is even more.
Alrighty, everyone.
The Chaos Lord himself on the back is like every inch cornate, right? So he's like very, very spiky. There's kind of teeth and skulls and.
All right, everyone. I'm gonna have to call it a night here. I am struggling at this point to keep it going. I've been quiet. I'm done for the night. It is taking its toll on me now. I'm gonna go have some sleep. I need some serious rest. But thank you all for coming, hanging out, and chatting tonight. It's been great. 100% need to go to bed now. I'm done. Hope you've enjoyed the reveals. We'll chat more on them sometime soon, when hopefully I'm a little better. Ciao for everyone. Thank you for coming and hanging out.